Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of Musical People and Journeys album reviews. And I'm your host, Nigel Matthews, and welcome to my gang today, Ian, Dave, and Trish. Welcome.
Morning.
Hey, welcome. Right, well, what have we got in store today? Well, Battle of the Albums, their brand new albums released, and we've got Maneskin versus Arctic Rain. Okay, rock on. So, and this is how it's going to work. We're going to review both albums, give them a rating out of 5, and let's see who would we prefer to buy. Should we have these two options of these two albums? Which ones we're going to buy? And then, obviously, could they make it into the hallowed Hall of Fame if they get a score of 20 or more, an average rating of 4? They can make the hallowed turfs. So gutted that our erstwhile colleague Chris can't make today, but good news is I have got his ratings. So off we kind of go then. So Maneskin, who are Maneskin? Well, who are Maneskin? Maneskin, in the red corner, are an Italian rock band formed in Rome in 2016. The band are composed of vocalist Diamano David, bassist Victoria De Angelis, guitarist Thomas Raggi, and drummer Ethan Toshio. Oh, my Italiano. Hey, how good is that? Rubbish. Performing in this... sorry, what was that?
Bellissimo.
There we go.
Bellissimo.
Right. Performing in the streets in their early days, they rose to prominence after finishing second in the 11th season of the talent show X Factor in 2017. An international breakthrough ensued when the foursome won the Eurovision Song Contest for Italy with the song Zutti e Buoni. No, that was a terrible pronunciation, but there we go. So, Maneskin, right, well, let's crack on. Dave, then, mate, let's come to you. You heard of Maneskin? Did you watch them at the Eurovision Song Contest?
I hadn't heard of them. No, I didn't. But I've really enjoyed this album. When it first started, the first couple of tracks, I actually thought this could probably be my third 5 out of 5. But with no spoilers, well, without spoiling too much, it didn't quite sort of get to that level. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. Nevertheless, really interesting, really fun throughout. Lots of variation. Really kept me interested. There were a few moments like blah 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 that should have really been left on the cutting room floor. That one. But yeah, other than that, really enjoyed this. Definitely an album I will be going back to. That's for sure.
Mate, you should listen to go onto YouTube and check out their Eurovision Song Contest win. It was rather good. So, Trish, now we know you're a bit of a fan of Maneskin, don't we? Well, I do anyway. So, tell us about this album. The album's called Rush, by the way. Just to say, I'd forgotten about Rush. And not rushing. Ian's just walked off into the background there. There we go. Bye, Ian. Let's crack on, Trish.
Okay. This album starts off in the Maneskin way their albums have, with a cracker, or Own My Mind, a toe-tapping banger, followed by another dance anthem, Gossip. Then surprisingly it slows down with Time Zone, a beautiful ballad which shows the lead singer's voice at its full potential, and you can hear the emotion, especially if you watch the video to go with this. I love this song, and as you know, I'm not a ballad person. I'm all about headbanging and dancing, but this song opened my heart. I know some of you will think the tempo is the same throughout the album, and I have to agree after another listen, and especially what they are up against in this battle of the bands. But hey, kudos to Maneskin. It's their bread and butter, and they know what works for them.
Ian, so, Maneskin, have you heard, did you were aware of them from the Eurovision Song Contest? I mean, I imagine you would have been.
Yeah, I love Eurovision, so I was definitely aware of them. I quite liked their Eurovision entry as well. I thought it was quite a good, fun rock pop, exactly what you want from Eurovision, to be honest. Obviously more the rock than the pop, but I did like them, and I was looking forward to this album. And safe to say, I did enjoy the album. It's quite interesting that Maneskin is up against Arctic Rain, because Maneskin, this album, is very Arctic Monkeys. I think there's a very good Arctic Monkeys feel to quite a few of their tracks, not all of them. They're quite safe and commercial on this album, to be fair, in the most part. it's good, solid, dependable rock. I think if you want something that you think, do you know what I want to listen to? I'm driving, I'm going to whack that on. I'm cleaning the house, I'm doing some bits and pieces, I want it on. Actually, you know what? I want to listen to something different. I'm purposely listening to an album. You wouldn't not choose this, like you would perhaps some other albums of that type of ilk. And they were, I thought it was well-rounded, really well-produced. Clearly, they've thrown a lot of money at this. And I really thought, and the vocals were really good, really tight, and very interesting to listen to. Even on Mana Mana or whatever that song was, that was
blah 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 blah, wasn't it?
Blah blah blah. Yeah, that was it. It was a bit of a comical song, but I thought there were a couple of really good tracks in there. Supermodel, If Not For You, I thought I could listen to those over and over again. The rest of the tracks, they're just good quality filler tracks, I think, for me personally. I'm not a huge fan of the Arctic Monkeys and that type of thing, and Killers and stuff. They're really good. Doesn't really give me a big tick apart from that huge Killers album. So for me, I liked it. I was really impressed with a couple of tracks, but generally a bit too safe and commercial, but I wouldn't turn it off either.
So, what did I think of this? I want to say thank you to Maneskin for this album, because it basically there was a burning question that I've been wondering and worried about over the last few years, and that was, when Status Quo hang up their boots, who's going to take over? Who is going to replace Status Quo? Okay, and Maneskin have come with this album and answered that question, because I agree with you, mate. It's absolutely safe, and I disagree with Dave. I think there's very little variation in this album at all, really, apart from a few ballads. It's very, it's quite repetition in terms of its chords. They pretty much use the same, and that's the lightning. Look, they don't sound like Status Quo. They sound completely different to Status Quo. The similarity being is that they have, essentially at the core of what they do, it's very safe. So I totally agree with Ian. Incredibly safe with a very similar repetition. Yes, they vary up. Yes, they have the odd ballad, which is good. But I mean, then so did Status Quo in the Army now, etc. Now and again, they would change it up. So I mean, it could be that they're not going to end up like Status Quo. The next album, they might do something different. But that's the way it felt. It felt very, very safe, very, very basic, very, very in the same chord. However, saying that, it was a thoroughly enjoyable album. It was fun. It was light. It was to do there. I am of a mindset of, like, if I can't understand the lyrics, I don't listen to the song. I simply don't. I would never potentially go to see the opera, though. I think before I die, I would like to, just to experience it. But if I don't understand what they're saying, I can't invest me into it, you know. So when it's split into the Italian songs, it was, well, I'm going to skip it, even though the beat's quite good. I'm not going to listen to those again, so to speak. So, but you know, I perfectly think. But it was a fine, solid album. I mean, it wasn't awesome, it wasn't great. And you're right, blah blah blah. First listen, second skip. I just like that. Just going to infuriate me if I kind of listen to that song again. I think the opening track on the album, which I just kind of find was on, I think it's On My Mind. I mean, it was a cracking opening track, absolutely cracking. It kind of got you straight into that album. So there we go. So right, well, let's find out our scores. Well, no, we're not going to find out our scores, because we're going to move to the opposition. Before we do that, what am I doing? Okay, so they are up, and this is the last minute. We were going to be putting another band in there, but unfortunately we've discovered that Roddy Romero, which I thought was going to be a perfect foil for Maneskin, was a covers album. So so obviously none of us listened to that album, did we, Dave? Yeah, we didn't, like, you know, read them, follow up emails and carry on listening to it. But by the way, was Roddy Romero any good? Was his cover album any good? Oh well, there we go.
It was absolutely tough.
So Arctic Rain. Who are Arctic Rain? Well, let me tell you, folks. Arctic Rain is quite simply a new melodic rock sensation from, guess where? You're never going to guess where, because it's all melodic rock, the home of melodic rock. Sweden! Every melodic rock band comes out of Sweden these days. The result of a collaboration between songwriter keyboardist Pete Alpenborg, pronounce that one, guitarist Magnus Bergland, and singer Tobias Johansson, bassist Gert Dwan, and drummer Jonas Jonsson. Then joined Arctic Rain for the recording of their debut album. So this is their debut album. The group's aim was to write songs with a strong melodic rock vibes based around, I love this, right? Tasteful instrumental harmonies, typical of many bands from the 90s and 80s and 90s. A revival of sorts, but with a modern touch given to an overall sound. Ooh, I mean, I'm just going to reread that. Tasteful instrumental harmonies, typical... What? It's rock! It's rock, for God's sake! I mean, anyway, let's find out. Let's start with the goddess of 80s and 90s rock, Ian. What did I do? Trish.
I knew you were going to do that.
I knew that was coming. Absolutely. I'll take goddess.
Now, we'll start with Trish. Trish, what about Arctic Rain for you then, mate?
Wow. From listening to the opening track, One World, I knew this album had me written all over it and would hit my sweet spot. And I was excited for what was to come. And this album did not disappoint me. With the guitars sound akin to 80s Def Leppard, yes, to my ears, offering big, bold songs with a rockier edge. This album is a tsunami of melodic rock bangers, ballads, and hit all my sweet spots and will thrill existing fans and then surely entice new listeners as it did me. Banger!
Banger! Let's go to our other rock goddess, Ian. Arctic Rain. How did this fly for you, my friend?
Well, I like Trish. It's like, oh, here we go. Here's a bit of 80s. It is, and I was like, I was really looking forward to this. Unlike Trish, this disappointed me, and the reason was, it's another 80s rock-esque album from Sweden that has been done so much better by so many other Swedish artists, I think. That being said, I don't want to diminish what they've achieved on this album. I had a feeling it might be their debut album. I intentionally didn't look at their album history or anything. I just wanted to get a feel from the album and then see if my assumption was correct or not. I found that the production was quite patchy in places. There were a lot of mixing bleeds where vocals were coming in a little bit too late, a little bit too early, cutting in a bit, especially in the first or second track. There were quite a few, and I found myself skipping, which I don't normally do on a first listen, but I did. There wasn't a lot of originality with it, but then this type of 80s Swedish type thing doesn't tend to have a lot, but when it does, it really does stand out. And I think that's the difference that I was trying to describe earlier. It doesn't really stand out. It's quite repetitive, but then if you want your dripping 80s, it's not going to vary very much either. So I think this would be another enjoyable 80s-esque album, but probably wouldn't be my first choice of this genre to pick.
Oh, now, as we all know, Dave loves a bit of retro 80s, 90s rock, and I'm sure this is going to be a 5 coming from Dave. Dave! Rock on, Arctic Rain.
In all fairness, this is the sort of, listening to it, the first sort of couple of tracks, I thought, this is the sort of thing that I could sort of get into. But I've got to be honest, it was just bland and boring for the most part. Vocals, I don't know what it was. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about his vocal style which just really irritated me, to be honest. It's kind of like Chris has with Miles Kennedy. It's just something about his vocals that just rubs me up the wrong way. I lost interest really fast. And I can usually tell how much of an impact an album has on me, because I usually go through and I do my notes, and I can pretty much remember most albums when I'm writing my notes down. This one, I actually had to do a sort of double stop and to check and just like did I actually even listen to this album? And then when I went back and listened to it, I went, yeah, I remember listening to this. It was awful. Didn't enjoy it. As I say, just didn't leave any impact on me at all. There was nothing about it that stood out and made any sort of mark on me at all.
Wow. Okay. Look, as you know, obviously similar to you guys, obviously brought up by that genre, and I'm sometimes the biggest critic of these types of bands that are gonna, if you're gonna play in the generic 80s, 90s rock arena, of which there are many, you've got to bring it to the table, and you've got to hit it, and you've got to hit it hard, and you've got to stand out. I've got to say, I think this is a cracking attempt at it. I think, and the reason why that is, in my opinion, is actually it's a little bit heavier. There is a bit more heavier influence, I think, to their music, which I appreciate too, because it wasn't completely generic. Yes, it had that vibe. Yes, it had that generic rock vibe. But I actually, and I agree with you with voice, you're either going to love or hate his voice. And first time, then actually, it kind of really grew on me, and I really liked it. And I thought it had a bit more punch to it, and it had a bit more heavier influence to it, which made it stand out in that sort of that sort of arena. And let's be honest about it, firmly in that arena, but incredibly well produced, great first album, great guitar riffs in there as well. I thought this was a really good effort, really good. I mean, I'd say there are a lot of bands playing in this one, and for me these stood out a little bit more. It's never going to get a perfect vibe. It just because it's not new, but there was some good variation in there. I enjoyed this album. I thought it was really good. If you're gonna base it on that sort of genre, I thought it stood out kind of a lot more. So this could be a bit of a battle, couldn't it? Let's find out, shall we? First of all, let's start off with Chris's votes, because obviously he's not here. He gave Maneskin 2.5, and he gave Arctic Rain 1.5. No shocks there, really. Neither of them he was that great. But one up then to Maneskin. Let's go to Trish then. Trish, give me your votes for Maneskin and then Arctic Rain, please.
Maneskin 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Arctic Rain 5 out of
5. 5 for Arctic Rain.
Unpredictable, I know.
No, not at all. That's one apiece. Dave, let's come to you then. Maneskin.
3.5.
3.5. And Arctic Rain.
1.
Harsh, you're a harsh man. Ian, so that's 2 apiece. Ian, 1 apiece, sorry, 1 even. Ian, Maneskin.
So Maneskin got 3.5 from me.
5, yeah.
And listening to reviews, I felt right in the middle of Trish and Dave. But the score wasn't quite in the middle. It was 2 out of 5 for Arctic Rain.
2 out of 5.
Yeah.
2 out of 5 for Arctic Rain.
Sorry, Trish.
So looks like Maneskin's got this. However, I was alongside Trish. Maneskin 3.5. Arctic Rain got a 4 from me. So on that score. But unfortunately, Maneskin nips it. As a group, we would buy Maneskin. But there we go. But how did that achieve overall? So if you get a score of 20, you're into the Hall of Fame. Around about 19, you're into the top 50. Anyway, so that's kind of where it's tough. It's tough at the top to get into our albums, which are fast approaching 200 on that score. So anyway, Maneskin, let's tie them up. 7.5, 8. So 7.5, 8, 10, 13.5, 14, 17. Going to be up there, top 70.
Pretty good.
Like that. So pretty good score for Maneskin. Well done. 9, 10.5, 12.5, 14.5 for Arctic Rain. That's still probably top 100. That's pretty damn good. That's a pretty good score. It's above average, so well done on your debut album, Arctic Rain. Us people in the know, the real people that matter, Trish, God and Goddess. we know. But anyway, there we go. Thank you very much for joining me on today's show. Congratulations to Maneskin. Well done to both solidly good albums. Did well, particularly the vicious streak of Chris and David. We know are just stick the knife in, but that's okay. Anyway, thanks for joining MPG. Please like and subscribe. Please go to our Facebook page, and the ratings and stuff will be at the bottom. Hit the bell button if you want reminders. We've got tons of album reviews, and we are reviewing new albums all the time. And stay safe out there and rock on, everybody. Thank you.